Well, welcome to August. Sorry I've been gone so long. I've been busy having a vacation and going to Europe and just basically getting prepped for all that and doing that. And of course I've been doing some upgrades on my laser as well. So really finding time to do a video has been kind of a bit of a challenge. But nonetheless, here we are, and let's get caught up with what's going on. The crew is, it's summertime, so we're all kind of taking vacations and doing different things. I know Sean's been camping. I haven't heard from Paul in a while, but I'm sure he's busy doing much of the same thing. And of course, John's getting ready to go on vacation here pretty soon. So we've been working on a lot of different things here and there, piecemeal it together. We kind of get things together off and on. Matter of fact, just before I went to Europe, Sean brought a model in that we've been working on. And as I said in my last video, which I know was over 3 months ago, and I apologize for that, we've been focusing on scenery. We both are a little tired of laying track, and sure enough, I then rip up Longmont, and we'll get into that in a little while with some changes. But I want to focus this month on a model that Sean built, a Monster Model Works, on the machine shop. Really, he did a wonderful job on that. Also, what has been going on with the laser, I did some upgrades. I changed over to a 60-watt laser. I meant replacing the power supply and putting in the new 60-watt laser, which I didn't need the full 60 watts, but it's kind of like a light bulb. If you have 60 watts and you only use 40 watts of it, it lasts a lot longer, and that's kind of the way it works. So I'm not having to overcharge it or overdrive it, and it'll be a longer lasting laser. It also gives me the power to cut through 3mm plywood and things like that, which is, plywood is the one thing I was struggling a bit with the K40 laser. But in any case, come on in, we'll show you what we've been working on. We'll give you an update on Longmont. We're going to give you a little look at the plan changes, and then we'll talk at the layout of what's been going on. So come on in.
Okay, so here's the plans as originally as I had built when you last saw Longmont. So you can see that the main line basically comes through here. You had the siding coming through here and then coming back around and then heading your way down to the Loveland Y. And so your trains would come off of the siding and into here and shuffle stuff in the transfer yard. And then this was all the Great Western Sugar Mill, and they would manage this. And then you would run back here, and back here were two industrials, the cannery and Longmont Foods. The changes that I've made, the issue is originally this dipped in quite a bit, so there's a lot of real estate in this area right here that wasn't being used. It was forcing me to put flats along here, and I just wasn't happy with the way that it was working. So the changes that I made look like this. So now I've moved the main line up a little bit so that it forced more real estate to be used. This is now coming close to the edge of the table. So if you're coming in through the siding, you would come into through here, through the street, run through town here, and then come back out if you wanted to. The transfer yard and everything, this has got to all be redesigned right through here. And then this would be the the Western Foundry right here. And this would be the street run coming through here. And then this is the cannery, and then this is Longmont Foods back in here. So that's the changes that would be made. So if you're coming out of Denver, you would come out of Denver coming through on this A section right over here. You would come into town here, run into here, and you would then drop your loads into the transfer yard over in here. Then you would continue on down to here with the rest of your train, go into Longmont through the Y here, and actually drop off to the sugar mill there. You would then turn around, picking up the empties, bringing those back through here, and then picking up the empties out of Longmont, and then returning back to Denver. That's the operational plan as it stands right now. So that's going to force trains to come through here. Not all the trains, but enough to go into here, and it leaves the dispatcher an option to passing a train right through here. So I'm not hindered by having just this main line and unable to move trains around north and south on this. So that's the changes that are being made, and let's go ahead and take a look at the layout.
Okay, so here we are in Longmont again, still. You're probably very familiar with this, but you can see some things have changed. So back there is the number 12 turnout, and there's another number 12 turnout down at the other end here. This is the siding that's going to come into here. It's not quite down yet because I'm still making some adjustments here to getting this yard. I'm probably going to take this track here and move it over to here and just realign it just slightly, just to kind of get use a little more room and give me a better flow of geometry coming through here. Everything else has pretty much stayed the same there over in the sugar mill. But coming down through here now, you can see the siding's coming into here, and this is now the street run coming through here. So what I ended up doing is I ended up adding a little over, well, at this end about 8 inches, and on the other end about 8 inches, but there was more room to have because this backdrop kind of bows in that area there. So it gives me a little more room here to put like this bigger house, which you can't see behind the foundry here. But it gives more room, and it becomes a much more comfortable, the scene doesn't feel as if it's being compressed and compact and just no room to really do anything. There's plenty of room now for the roads on both sides of the track, and it's going to give me that that ability to run a train through the street run just as it was in the prototype. So I'm really looking forward to this, and it's really starting to come together pretty well. Still not done with, like I said, laying the track down, and still working on getting the flow a bit, but for the most part everything is done going through here. This track here, right here, originally was all the way into where this track is at right now, and now it's been brought out to here, and there's still plenty of edge here on the table, and it can run all the way down through there, and it looks more prototypical per se. Again, that's kind of what we're taking a look at the changes that I showed you. It's really moving forward. I have 2 houses done here. I'm actually mixing some of the Craftsman kits, some of the different kits that are available for houses, and mixing them. Now understand that most of these houses back here would have been built between the 1930s, probably 1920s, 1930s, so they're smaller houses. Matter of fact, these houses, most of them, are probably Sears Craftsman kit houses. Now you're like, say what? Okay, well let me explain. Sears, in that time frame, you could order a house, and they actually cut the lumber, numbered it all, and loaded it up into a railroad car and sent it off to you. And when you got it, you got a railroad car full of windows, parts, doors, and everything that you needed to build that house. All you had to do is put the foundation in. And that's what a lot of these houses are. And so a lot of the model building that I've been doing, the scratch building I've been doing, is going to the archives of Sears and pulling down these old well, they would have been the pages from the catalog. So they would have had the floor plans where the windows were at and everything, and then our artist's rendition of what the outside of it would look like. But that's what I get to start the designing of my models. And the reason why I'm not going to do scratch build kits all the way through there is A, I want to actually get the railroad done and have some scenery done so that we can actually enjoy it. But on average, you know, I've been working on this latest house. It's been 21 days and that's 21 actual days. It's actually been longer, but it's been 21 actual days of me sitting in a computer, from drawing it, coming up with the ideas, putting the plans together, getting them all set so that it can go to the laser cutter, cutting the parts out and deciding what materials I want to cut them out of, and then actually trial fitting them and seeing if they fit together and work well. And some of these lines are, you know, some of these roof lines are pretty complex, and so I'm having to tweak and adjust as we go through. The nice thing about having a laser is, well, if the part's not quite right, I just redraw it on the computer and then run out to the laser and go shoot it again, and there you go, I got the part again and try it again. So that's what takes a lot of times of doing these. But you know what? It's enjoyable, it's fun, it's part of the hobby. So there you go. So what we're going to do now is we're going to focus in on this kit right here. This is a kit done by one of the crew. This is Sean. Sean Gavin did an absolutely excellent job at this model. This is a Monster Models Works. This is their machine shop, and we're going to take a look at it close up and inside it. And again, he's got an interior in here, but it's not high definition interior, because when we finally dirty the windows up and everything in there, you're not really going to be able to see that much into it. It's just enough to give the feeling that there's actually life going on in there. And eventually when we put lights and people in there, it'll fit perfectly. So anyway, let's take a look at that model. So as you can see, that was the street run back there. And now we're going to take a look at Sean's model here. And this is absolutely fantastic. So back in the back here, the Western Foundry has actually a couple buildings in it, the complex. And so we're going to put those in the back here, some of the buildings back in there. This is, of course, going to be the building that's closest to the foreground. And as you can see inside here, you can see some of the structures that are inside. Now we'll take a look at that in a minute, but I just wanted to take a look at the outside of this building and the job that Sean has done. I mean, the rust on the side in here, on the door, just all of this detail. Absolutely excellent modeling, fantastic, and kudos to Sean. But let's take a look inside and show you how easy it is to maybe build an interior. So this is the interior right here, and you can see it's not very complicated. It's very simple. Sean just took and built some basic shapes, put a floor down into there, and just created the illusion that these are actual machineries, and just have some items there. And when we then put some people and some lights in here and dirty these windows up, it'll look fantastic, and it'll give it an effect that it's actually a full interior, even though you can't see the whole thing. And we're just going to close this back up in here. Naturally, I've done this 100 times and it works really easily, and now when I want to do it this time, it's difficult, but nonetheless, there it is. I'll set it down here. There it goes. So there it is. And Sean just did an absolutely excellent job at this model. I can't compliment him enough on it. Here's the other side of it right here. And just some incredible detail work all the way through. So just superb work, and a credit to his skill. So that is Monster Model Works machine shop, and it's actually going to be labeled as the Western Foundry, which is an actual industry in Longmont. It does not have rail service. It basically specialized, and I believe it was either late 1800s or around the early 1900s that this company was founded. And they specialize in parts that are under 2.5 tons, and they all use electric foundries, and just got a lot of, matter of fact, I can't wait to do it. It'll have a lot of electrical banks out and around here, substation, everything else. It really will just fit this scene really well and just scream the time period that we're working on. So that's a look at Sean's model, and if you get a chance, give him a shout and tell him how much you appreciate it. So in any case, let's take a look at what's going on with the laser. Okay, so here we are on the laser, and this is actually drawing a lot of attention, and a lot of folks have been asking me questions about it. So I originally bought a one of these 40-watt K40 Chinese cheap lasers, and I basically rebuilt it. Project probably, you know, ended up costing me about 12 when I initially started off. So I'm already ahead of the game when I did it. But the project, just if you're interested in doing this, there's a K40 group. There's a lot of good information out there. You can get a lot of people to help you out. But just to kind of give you an overview of what I've been doing, this is the original tube on it. And these tubes were probably, I'm going to say, this is about 28 to 32 watts. Now, cutting paper and things like that, piece of cake with it. But what you're going to run into is cutting plywood takes a lot of wattage, about 40 watts to cut through a 3mm piece of plywood. And even then, you got to go pretty slow. If you push it up to about 50 watts, you actually be able to cut it at a reasonable speed and be able to get through it fairly quickly. And that depends on the focal point of your lens that you have in there. I'm not going to try to get into the details of all of that, but because of the nature of these inexpensive, cheap Chinese lasers, I burnt that laser tube up in no time at all. I did get the one kit, the cannery built, and a couple experiments and working with some other projects. So I decided that I would go ahead and upgrade it to a 60-watt laser. Reason being is it's just kind of like a light bulb. If I use a 12-volt light bulb and I only feed it with 11 volts, it'll last a lot longer than if I feed it 12 volts or 12.5 volts. Simple rules of the game. So I bought a 60-watt laser. And a 60-watt, so to give you an idea, this the 2832 watt laser that they have here, this is barely over 2 feet, probably about 30 inches long, which is not the length of a 40-watt tube. I decided to go with a 60-watt because the advantage of a 60-watt is I could cut. I had more power available to me, and I wouldn't have to overdrive the laser to get to any real distance. So a 60-watt laser is about a quarter of a meter longer than a meter. So it's about 42 inches long, give or take. I'm not an expert on making that conversion, but that's roughly what it is. So the old 30-watt was about this long right here when it reached about here. The new one reaches all the way to here. Now, Light Objects sells a box that you can attach onto the end of your laser, and this will fit a 50-watt laser, which is about 1,000 millimeters or one meter long. But I went with a 60-watt, and so it's a little longer by 250 millimeters. And this laser is actually rated for, you can overdrive it to 70, which I don't ever want to do. But at 60 watts, I can actually cut most things fairly quickly. So a lot of the work I've been doing has been relearning the power changes and all that occur. This also took quite a bit of time because one of the things I wanted to do was to be able to cut in all 4 quadrants of my laser equally the same. So I could have a project that's it's a 12 by 12 inch platform I have in there. And matter of fact, that was one of the upgrades I did was this is the honeycomb, and I can cut in there roughly 12 by 12. Now this is manually adjusted. I have manual adjustments because most of the cuts I make are fairly small and they're not going to change that much. And the focal points, I'm using mostly a 1.5 inch focal point, or I believe it's a 38.6 millimeter focal point. And so that's pretty much what I use most of the time, and I use it for cutting, this polyback for making doors and things like that, real quick and easy. Most of my cuts are not much longer than, I think when I'm cutting out the side of a building, like the last house I built, it took me to scribe all the wood lines, all the boards and everything in there, and then actually cut it out of plywood. Took me about 5, maybe 5.5 minutes to cut it out. So they're not long projects. They're not daunting projects on there. It's just nice to have the extra power because I can actually throw it at 33 watts of power, and I'm cutting these things in 5 minutes, and I'm not stressing the laser at all. So that's a real plus with doing that. The other thing that a friend of mine turned me on to is these acrylic marbles. You can buy these at Amazon. You can actually get them at U.S. Plastics. They're about 11 cents a piece. I got 3/8 inch, and you can also get them down to a quarter. And a quarter would have worked fine. I would have bought them from U.S. Plastics. They were 11 cents a piece. But to be fair, the shipping was more than what I was paying for the marbles I needed. So I got them on Amazon for less than what it was going to cost me for shipping from U.S. Plastics. So that's the thing that you might take a look at if you're looking at it. So that's where we're at with the laser. I actually built this box that goes on the end. I guess I should finish out that this would only fit a 50 milliliter laser, so I had to extend it again, and that's what this acrylic box is. And again, I cut all this out on the laser, that and this cover that goes on here. It actually had a metal cover that was on there ahead of time, and I just replaced that. The nice thing is I can actually see in there and see the laser operating. Check and make sure there's no air bubbles when the water pump's running to cool it. So that's this month's update. I do want to give a shout out to Kevin Smith, and those of you who are YouTube fans, Kevin has a YouTube channel called Scale Model Trains and the Joint Line. Now the Joint Line is what I'm modeling. I'm modeling actually the Joint Line begins just out of Denver and runs all the way down to Pueblo. And Kevin is doing that area in particular, so he's covering half of my layout, what he's doing. He's doing it in HO scale, and he is doing it in 1985, so much more modern than what I am. It's about 25 years, and I'm saying 85. I apologize, Kevin, if I got the wrong year. But it's in the 80s, getting in towards the 90s, and really an excellent channel. I watch Kevin's stuff all the time. Mainly because it's always good to get different ideas from different people modeling the same area that you're modeling, and that's what Kevin's doing for me. So a shout out to Kevin. He highlighted my YouTube channel, and I only feel it's fair that I do the same for him. But I really appreciate it, and appreciate his work that he's doing as well. So until next month, when things get rolling again, happy modeling.